Hola, un saludo muy especial. Bienvenidos a esta nueva charla con profesores de inglés. Hoy con Luis Eduardo Campuzano. Luis Eduardo es uno de los profes que trabaja con nosotros aquí en Soluciones Pedagógicas, además de ser un docente con una amplia experiencia en la enseñanza del idioma. Ha vivido mucho tiempo en Estados Unidos y bueno, ya él nos va a contar más acerca de su trayectoria y de su trasegar por la enseñanza de inglés como lengua extranjera. Damos una bienvenida. Hello, Luis Eduardo. How are you?
Teacher Hernan, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
All right. No, the pleasure is ours. All right, Luis. Would you mind telling us a bit about you? How did you start teaching English? Did you actually taught yourself as a teacher when you were younger in high school, in primary school, whatever? Or is it just by coincidence like me?
Well, Hernan, as you might know, I think very few teachers, people who are teachers nowadays, when they were kids, they said, I want to be a teacher. That's something that usually doesn't happen. I would say that maybe 80% of teachers, when they were young, they did not want to be teachers. And I am one of those people that fit in that category. When I was younger, I actually began studying to be a radiologist,
All
working with
right.
X-rays. And the thing was that my family came down to Colombia to retire. I felt I was going to be alone, and so I came down with them. And I came down first. Try to find a place to live and get accustomed to everything. And then it turns out my family didn't move down. My parents unfortunately got divorced, and I was the only one that stayed down here. I mean, I have cousins and stuff, but I stayed down here, and my money started running out. So I had to look for a way to make a living. And I saw a friend here in Colombia that I knew from the States, and he was an English teacher. And he said, "Hey, why don't you teach English? You have a good command of the language. I think you can do it." And I said, "A teacher? Are you kidding me?" I mean, to be honest, I considered myself a very bad student. I was very bad at doing homework and stuff, but I like learning. I think that's something that has always been a part of my being. I love learning. I love exploring. I love reading. I like seeing what looking at things from different angles and seeing what's new and studying. And but I don't like sitting in a classroom and listening to a teacher. I thought it was very boring. I mean, I paid a lot of attention when the teacher gave a class that I thought was interesting. I like social studies very much. I always like language very much. Um, and so I asked him, "Listen, you have to teach me. I've never taught in my life." And I remember going to my first interview. They listened to me and they said, "Okay, tomorrow you're going to give a class on the present simple." And I said, "Okay, fantastic." And I went home and I called my friend. I said, "I have to teach the present simple. What is that?" And he said, "Come over, I'll teach you." So he gave me some tips, and I started working in an English academy. In that English academy, I gave class to a high school coordinator,
All
and
right.
she asked me, "Would you like to be a school teacher?" And I said, "I don't know about that." And the place where I was working closed down. And so I called her and I went for an interview and I became a school teacher. And I was a school teacher for 12 years. And while I was working in that school, I also started teaching at universities. At the time, we're talking about the year 2005.
All right.
Pereira itself um, didn't have many native speakers and didn't have many English teachers. At the time, there was no university in the city that taught English, or I should say, language, teaching a language to become a teacher, to have a license to teach. There was no university that taught
All
that
right.
program. So there was very few of us. If you had good English, you could get a job. And I was very fortunate to be in the city at the time where there was very few native speakers. And everywhere I went, all I had to do was say, "Hey, how you doing? I'm looking for a job," and they'd say, "You're hired." Which is terrible. I mean, I wouldn't do it. Now I'm a supervisor myself with some other teachers, and it's something I do. And I would never give somebody a job just based on their speaking. But at the time, there's different times.
Yeah.
And I learned how to teach from just teaching. I mean, there's no other way to think about it. I know it sounds crazy, right? But think about a person that doesn't know how to swim.
Yeah.
And back when we were kids, Hernan, where parents had a different mentality. Some parents would take their kids and just throw them in the pool. All right, try to swim.
Yeah.
And you just move your arms, your legs until you start floating, and that's basically what happened with my teaching. I would learn tenses by studying them, by seeing how they work, because the mechanics of the language is one thing and the use is another. I mean, if you're an English speaker or you're a native Spanish speaker or any language, you normally don't understand the mechanics of the language. And that's something that you have to learn. And I'm still learning. I mean, I've been a teacher for 17 years now, and I'm still learning. And I love learning new things and new tips. We're very fortunate right now because we live in a time where there's just so many resources.
Yeah.
I mean, when I started teaching, it was you and a marker and or a piece of chalk and a blackboard, and just go for it, and you have to be very, very creative. And just try not to make the class boring, and just try to make it as interactive as possible, which is hard to do at the time. Yeah.
100%. Yes, 100%. I've heard you also prepare people for the IELTS and TOEFL test. How did you get how did you get along with that? If like the first steps, knowing no grammar, as you were saying, you don't know the mechanics of the language. How can you prepare them to get a B2 or a C1 and not knowing the mechanics of the language yourself?
Well, at that time, I did have a better grasp. I started doing test preparation, when I was about 8 years in as a teacher.
All right.
And at the time, I did have a better grasp anyway of the language. But what I do is, I mean, as a teacher, anytime I plan a class or a week of class or a month or a year, you always have to look at, what's the goal, and then plan backwards. So I looked at the test. And in fact, I took many mock tests of the TOEFL, and I would see the structure, I would see the grammar tenses used. And it's a funny thing about when people are preparing to take a test, there are people that have a very good command of the language and do terrible on tests. So when you prepare somebody to take a test, it's not just language, but it's prepare the person to be a good test taker. And that's not an easy task. People get very nervous. I think as we're seeing now with more studies that are coming out, a large part of the population suffers from some form of dyslexia.
Yeah.
Last studies that I've seen, about 30% of the world population suffers from dyslexia. And as we know, there's different levels of it. But of course, that is a huge part of reading comprehension, which is one of the main tasks in the TOEFL. Some people have very short-term memory. And the TOEFL, for example, is a test that in the listening section, you can't see the questions beforehand. So you have to listen to this long audio of 3, 4, 5 minutes, try to take notes, and then look at the questions. And that can be very difficult for somebody that has a short-term memory. So there's little things like that where they're not really intricate of the language itself. It's more test taking. And in this, there's the other, I would say 70% of language. So a lot of it was just, taking mock tests, see how I did, see what were my strengths, what were my weaknesses, and see how I can work on that. And then think about, okay, if somebody else is taking tests, what if they're very bad listeners, or very bad at reading, or very bad at grammar, or they get very nervous, or they take a very long time to process the information. So these things I put them to use little by little, and every student that I had helped me, because maybe there was something that I didn't have in mind when it came to my planning, and I saw something from that student. And the more you teach class, we are teachers and we teach students, but as a teacher, that students teach us more than we teach them most of the time. They teach us patience. They teach us how to teach something in a different way. Maybe you've been teaching a topic in a certain way, and then you have a new student that they don't grasp the topic, and you have to think of another style, another way. So that's fun too, and it's always a challenge as a teacher to find better ways. But technology has been a huge help, and nowadays there's just so much tech to help us. Another thing that helps us nowadays too is that English is very international because of the internet. Back in 1999 and in the early 2000s, English was very localized. You can only learn English from maybe something you saw on TV or a teacher, and that's it. But now with the internet, English is everywhere. And even people that they say they don't like English, they're watching Instagram, they're watching TikTok, they're watching YouTube. And if they like video games, for example, most of the gamers on Twitch, you'll have in English. And most of the content of the internet is in English. And so it has pushed people to learn English even if they don't want it.
Yeah.
And that's a plus for us teachers.
Yeah, that's where I was going. They even say, statistics says that 8 out of 10 English speakers are not native nowadays.
Crazy.
Only 20% of the English speakers are natives, and count on how many native speakers are over there, because people think.
Sure. Well, take China.
Yeah.
Or India, right? I mean, if you think about English speakers, they're more English speakers in China and in India than there are in the United States because of the population size. So that's really something interesting, and I think it's great. As an English teacher, I think it's great. I mean, I can't imagine being a French teacher and then the world learning French the way they learn English. It would be crazy, right?
Yeah.
So it's a huge advantage for us. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. So going back to the test taking stuff, do you have any resources you can recommend to the people that are watching us at the moment? Because I'm pretty sure that many people that are watching this talk today, they want to go for the standardized test. They want to go for that IELTS. They need the B2 or the B1 to graduate from college, or they just want to come abroad to do a master's or just to visit. So will you be able to share with us some resources in terms of test preparation, and then we'll go to the pronunciation ones, because I'm pretty sure you have loads of pronunciation resources.
Well, I have so many. I don't know we'll have time to cover them, but you know what I'd like to do, Evan, is maybe I can also share. I'll share some with you here, and I can also share a document with you where maybe you can share with your listeners, and they have those resources for themselves.
Perfect.
I would say that. I mean, can I show the web pages? We won't get in trouble here.
Yes, yes. If they're GPL, of course you can show them. Yeah.
All right, great. So I'm gonna just share my screen here. There's many. I would say 2 of the ones that I like very much is this one here. Share my screen here. This one is called Exam English. And I like this webpage. It's constantly being updated. And this is focused exactly on standardized testing. So you'll have practice here for TOEFL, for TOEIC, for IELTS, for the PTE, for the PET exam, for the CAT exam, for the FCE exam. You just have a lot of different tests here. And they have exercises based on those tests. They even have a level test. If maybe you're not sure what level you are, you can take their grammar, vocabulary, listening test. And also, if you just want to focus on a specific test, then you can do that too. And if you click here on Cambridge, it'll give you all the tests that are linked to the Cambridge, and so it has a lot of Cambridge type tests there. Michigan, CP. I mean, nowadays that's another thing. Man, in the past 10 years, we've had so many new types of English exams. It's really crazy. So this is a really good one.
Are they all the same? Are they all the same? How would I call this? Like, if you are a good tester, will you be able to pass any of them, or do you have to prepare yourself, keeping in mind which one you're going to present?
I think there are 2 factors. The first thing is if your English level, right? Because not all of the tests go to the same proficiency level. There are some tests that only go to a B1 level. There are some that go all the way up to a C2 level. So you have to first see what test is good for you. And secondly, what are you preparing for? Some of these tests are not they're not valid for all universities. If you're an exchange student, they're not valid for all universities. Some of these tests are not valid for exchange programs as well. So you have to see, okay, what are you preparing for? What is your goal? And then what is your English level? and then look at the tests that are valid for the university that you're applying for the job that you're applying for, so on and so forth. There's a couple of factors there. Another one, which is this web page here, because in Europe, the TOEFL is not taken too much in Europe. I would say the IELTS is the European TOEFL. And I would say that this is one of the best IELTS preparation pages that I've seen. It's fairly new, and it has really a whole bunch of mock exams, and all of them have the different sections like listening, reading, writing, speaking. Of course, in the English exam test, we also have preparation for IELTS, but this webpage here is just specialized for the IELTS. So that's another one.
All right.
And of course, if you know you want to prepare for the TOEFL itself, there you go to the Toefl Web Page. So let me show you what that looks like. And Toefl is another company that is constantly looking to update their tests and update the web page, so it's really good as well. So if you go to the Toefl web page, which is ets.org, you will also have a lot of resources there. You can select on a test taker, see what type of test you want to take, right? And they also have a lot of resources as well. So here you'll see the different tests and the preparation that you can take for that. The IBT is the internet-based test. So they tell you about it here. But you'll see there's just so many. There's just so many. Here where it says resources, you can take a look at the content, some practice tests, which are pretty cool, and these are constantly being updated as well.
Will you recommend any of the tests? Like, do you have any preference over the tests? Like, will you say a student you should take the IELTS because the IELTS is easier? I know none of them are easy, but the IELTS is easier than the TOEFL,
sure.
or is passable. You can.
Yeah, for sure. You know, there are some tests that are more difficult, even if you're a native speaker, because of the format of the test. The IELTS has a lot of sections where they're open answers, and open answers are tougher for people because it really makes them produce. So they can be tougher. The IELTS has a lot of open answers. I would say of the test, the IELTS is very hard. If you're gonna go to in the United States, they're when people graduate from high school, and if they want to get to a good university, you have to take the SAT. Okay. And the SAT it's a very difficult exam, even for native speakers. It's very hard. I would say that the FCE is challenging, not as hard as the IELTS, but for a person that, and of course, like I said, if the university accepts it, right? But I would say that the TOEIC is one of the tests that is, it has in mind that they can assess English within a short amount of time. The TOEIC takes, 2 hours, and it assesses the 4 skills. It's not as difficult, and the content within the test is more general English, or I would say more work-related, whereas the TOEFL is more academic. And the TOEFL is it's a really long exam. Each section takes an hour, so it can be very difficult. And when a student is doing a test in front of the screen for so many hours, your ability to answer just wanes down, and you don't do as good. So the TOEFL, as a matter of fact, came out with a new test because they've seen that. They've seen how other tests are shorter and more condensed. They have one called the Essentials. Okay. So it's more suited for students. But I would recommend if whatever they're applying for accepts it, I would recommend the TOEIC. TOEIC. It's quick. It's easier. The content is more general English. So yeah, definitely that.
All right, lads. You heard that. The TOEIC is the best option if you're thinking on taking a standardized test. One last question about the TOEIC, Luis. The results, will they go up to C1, C2, B2? What are the frame? What is the frame in terms of results?
Well, when it comes to the TOEIC exam, I'll pull up the TOEIC exam also has 2 different types, right? So So let's take a look at that. It's also made, the TOEIC is made from the IELTS company, which is ETS. But let's see here. The TOEIC has two tests. One that just tests, I think it tests reading and listening, and within the reading, the grammar is implicit. Whereas the TOEFL, just tests everything, and that's why kind of it's so long. But let's take a look at the TOEIC here, and all right. So I think this is the table they use here. There's a correlation table. The TOEIC itself, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but I'll try. I'll share the screen here. The TOEIC goes up to a C1.
Okay.
But that's okay, because very few tests that are international tests require a C2. I mean, to be honest, very few native speakers are C2s. I mean, you have to have an amazing command of the language to be a C2. Even, some teachers don't have a C2 command of the language, so that's okay. But the TOEIC goes up to the C1 proficiency level, which is more than enough. And I don't know if you're aware or not, but with a B2 is a level where most countries and universities accept students and people applying, because this is a level where the user can have a proficiency level which is good enough to work, to study. They would be able to understand anything at a restaurant, order anything if needed in an airport, and just interact with coworkers and students. A B2 level is more than enough.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, here in Ireland, that's what they require if you want to do an undergraduate. So if you want to earn a bachelor's degree in Ireland, you must show, or you must prove that you have at least a B2. Sorry. Now, if you want to do a master's or a PhD, then you will need a C1. But that's because of the level of education you're attempting to get. All right, now going to a different topic, Luis. You've been teaching English for 17 years, you were saying, in Colombia. So I believe most of the times you have had Spanish native speakers. What do you think about the use of Spanish in the classroom? Do you agree with it, or are you against? That?
This is a debated topic, man.
Yeah,
it's like the nature versus nurture topic. There's a debate. I would say that it depends on the level. Okay. Right? It depends on the level and the context. So what do I mean by that? If I have a student that lives in a country where the native tongue is not English, then it's necessary, especially for true beginners, A1. Spanish has to be used. Not 100% of the time. What I do when I give class is I say a phrase, and if it's a short one, I'll say the phrase in English and then I'll say it in Spanish. Say the phrase in English, I'll say it in Spanish. Even if I write to them via WhatsApp, I try to say the phrase in English and then in Spanish. As the course will go by, the smaller language chunks, like how are you, good morning, things like that, I'm not gonna translate them anymore. I'm just gonna say them because the student with the context that we've used within class should understand. But I would say just in A1, about 50-50. And then A2, it starts to go down to like 30, 70, and so on and so forth. I think once we get to B1, Spanish or the other language, the speaker's native language should be minimal. Now that's for people that live in a country that are not, Spanish speakers, not English speakers, native English speakers. So if they don't live in New Zealand, in Australia, US, and Canada, and so forth. But if they do live in a country where the native language is English, I would suggest try using as less Spanish as possible. One, because once they finish class with you, they're immersed with the language. Yeah. I mean, of course, the U.S. has Spanish TV and Spanish radio. Like my dad has lived there forever, and he turns on the radio and it's Spanish. He turns on TV, it's Spanish, and he talks to his family in Spanish. But in these countries where they can be immersed in the language, then they're learning from your class, but they're also learning when they go to the store, and they're learning when they go to the bank, and they're learning when they have to interact with somebody that's not, not living with them. So I think that's also a huge help. So it depends where the person is living, I would say. Imagine if you went to a country, imagine they told you, Hernan, that you have to be transferred to Thailand, and you go to Thailand and nobody speaks Spanish. You're going to learn Thai whether you want to or not. You're going to learn Thai in a very short amount of time compared to somebody that's taken a course of Thai in another country, because you would be immersed in the language. And of course, necessity is key. They say, I mean, that's a line, right? Necessity is the mother of all invention. So necessity is key. Once you see that you have to use it, your brain looks for a way to adapt. And so I think you have to also give your students, when you're in class, you have to give them challenges where they have to see the necessity. I tell students that are just learning English, even if they're A1, watch programs in English, watch TV in English, watch series in English, but watch it with subtitles in English. And I get pushback. The students say, but I won't understand anything. And I say, that's okay. I mean, if you understood everything, you wouldn't be in class, right? You have to create the necessity of your brain to try to understand what is happening. Because as human beings, that's something that is innate. It is in us, where we want to learn. We want to evolve. So if there's something we don't understand, our brain tries to look for a way to try to understand. So I think a very good technique, and it's very simple, especially nowadays, is watch series, movies in English with subtitles in English. And I think you and I have talked about this before. There have been studies that show that, once a student sees a word in context, in read comprehension context, a minimum of 70 times, the brain automatically learns the meaning of the word without ever touching a dictionary. Now think about how much text we have to read to see a word in context 70 times. It's a lot. But, if you do this exercise continuously, you will see it's like when you start a diet. You start the diet and you exercise, and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks go by, you don't see anything. Nothing's working. Well, that's not true. It just happens little by little. If students do this exercise, and I always tell students, take a series, watch an episode, and keep doing that exercise, and you'll see by season 2 or 3, you will understand much more of the episodes than you did in season 1, for sure.
100%.
Because your brain begins to look.
If you do it every day, though, if you do it every week, once a week, then the chances are minimum.
If you do it once a week, it's like if you exercise once a week compared to if you exercise every day, right? I mean, the progress is minimal.
We have a question here from one of the listeners. I'm pretty sure he's talking about exactly what we're on about it. He says, what about the authentic material for new speakers, or the real material, really material for real speakers?
We call that Realia. Well, it's the same thing as we were just talking about when we see a movie or a series in English with subtitles in English. The more you expose yourself to real material, I think the better. And it will make you, and it'll help you understand the English language better. It's the same as people like football. So I'll use football as an example, right? When a very good soccer player plays in the best league, they just get better, right? Because there's more challenges. Now, if you take a very good player and they ship him over, or he signs a contract to a league that is not as good, no offense to the Asian leagues, no offense, but let's say a person from the Premier League gets shipped over, they have a contract, and then they go to an Asian league, their soccer level, their football level, it's going to diminish. It's going to go down because there's not enough challenges. So the same thing happens with everything else in life. The more you are exposed to real material, real commercials, real websites that are not for ESL learners, but websites that are for English speakers. I like BuzzFeed. It makes me laugh. BuzzFeed or Cracked. That's another one. Just go to Google News and read the news in English. The more you expose yourself to that real language, the faster you will learn. Will it be more difficult to understand? Of course. In the beginning, it will be. But the more you challenge yourself, the more you're going to increase your level faster.
All right. Very good. Very good. I hope the question is answered. And talking about that, talking about real material and real pages and resources, Luis, uh, we've chatted before, and I know you have really good recommendations for pronunciation, to improve your pronunciation and to test your pronunciation. There is another debate between the importance of having native accent or not having a native accent. And my advice for my students and for anybody really, and not only in English, in any language, is the aim is to make yourself understand, right? If you can pass the message, if you can communicate, then the rest is coming, right? You can't
Right.
pretend to build a building without even starting, right? So
Correct. Yeah.
so there is, I know you have a resource in which you basically dictate to your to your mobile phone, and then the phone will
Oh,
write or the app will write.
oh, there's many of them, but I agree with you in
and
that
and
that
and what
you
I
know,
say, what I always say is that if the phone is able to understand you, anybody will be able to understand you, because that's it. The thing about being native, it's being native from where they're always on about being native from the States or from the UK. But there are many other countries that speak English as a native language, as an official language: Canada, New Zealand, Ireland,
sure.
even India, the
Yeah,
official language. So
it's gonna be
that's,
official language.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's,
Switzerland. Okay.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
beside the point now. But if the phone is able to understand, then I think we can call bingo. So do you have any resources there you can share with
Sure,
us,
I
with
sure
the
can. In fact,
audience?
I'm gonna share for you. I'm gonna need you to help me with one. All right. I'm gonna need you to help me with one. All right.
Yeah,
So,
no
do
bother.
you have your phone here? Do you have your phone nearby?
I
Your
do,
mobile
yeah.
phone? All right. Can you open up WhatsApp? Do you have your keyboard in English and in Spanish? Do you have it like that?
I have it. I'd say it's in, let me check. Yeah, it's in English, yeah.
Okay. Now, open up WhatsApp and
Yeah.
open a chat with me, right? And you're gonna see your keyboard,
Yeah.
right? And on your keyboard, there should be like an icon of a microphone.
Let me check. It is indeed, yeah, next to the emoji. I think it's, yeah, I don't think you'll be able to see it, but yeah, it's next,
Or
is on the top, over the letters, over the
so
numbers, next to
yeah,
the
for some
emojis.
cell phones, it's towards the top. For others, it's towards the bottom.
All
And
right.
if and so in WhatsApp, it's actually powered by Google, most of it. But in WhatsApp, if you click on that microphone icon
Uh-huh.
and you speak, it has the speech to text
Okay.
feature. So everything you say, it will write down. And I think that's a very good way to practice your English. Now, what I recommend for people that are just learning the language is something a little bit different. It's kind of related to that, and it's something that is very tied to what we call the shadowing technique or the imitation technique. Now, this is a technique where you listen to a native speaker speak and read the text, the transcription or the subtitles of what they're saying, the subtitles in English. And then there's a pause, and you try to repeat as much as you can, as closely as you can, to what you heard. So, for example, there's many videos on YouTube I can share. I'll share that list with you in a second too, so you can share with your listeners. The native speakers would say, "Hey, how are you today?" And all you have to do is, okay, pause. You try to say it. Hey,
Okay.
how are you today? Obviously, when you're beginning, you make a lot of mistakes, but that listening and repeating, as basic as it sounds, that's how babies learn the language. And this is a technique that has been studied. And about 5 years ago, it has become a tool that is now being used more and more in schools. I know it seems very old school, but it's not. It's actually very effective. But I'm going to show you one right now for people that maybe don't understand the pronunciation of all words. Google Translate, I think, is probably the best one right now for this. You have to make sure that the English tab or the English language is configured here on the left-hand side. And here, anytime we have a text here in the box,
Yeah.
the Google Translate we'll have it there. And once you have text in here, you'll see there's a little icon for listening. And if you click on that, hold on, I'm going to share my screen here with the sound so you guys can hear what I'm talking about. So once you have text in the box here, you can click on this little icon and listen to it.
Text in the box.
That's
Text in the box.
is the other way around, yeah.
Text in the box.
Text in the box. Text in the box, right?
Text in the box.
Now let's say you wanna learn a word that maybe you saw in a song, in a poem, in a web page somewhere, and you write it down here. I don't know. Let's say the word truffle. You saw, what is that? What is truffle? How do you say it? So you write it in here and you click on it.
Truffle.
And once you think you have the pronunciation down, once you've listened to it a couple of times, here we have the icon for speaking, and whatever you say, it will write down. So now you try pronunciating truffle. And so this is a very good way for people to practice pronunciation, and the best thing is that they're getting feedback. How do you know if you're pronouncing it right? Well, if it's spelled correctly, then you're pronouncing it correctly. If it's spelled wrong, that means you have to work on that sound. But you keep doing this exercise, and I guarantee your pronunciation will improve very, very quickly. I suggest people get maybe a paragraph from a story, a web page, put it in here and try listening to it and try repeating it. That's one very good way to do it. And besides that, we also have here the definition. So you're learning vocabulary as well, working on your reading. So
Luis,
will
that work? Just a quick question there. Will that work with minimal pairs? You know, words that sound very similar for those of you that don't know what a minimal pair is. Yeah, just
of course. So, for example, a very common error that we see in Spanish is that the Y, they pronounce it like a J. So, for example, yet, a lot of Spanish speakers say jet.
Yeah.
But jet in English is another word. So you listen to it.
Yet.
And then you pronounce it. Yet. And then write down the other word that's very similar to it, right?
Jet.
And then you try saying it. Jet. So that's an exercise that you can do. But also, you know, what you can do is just go to Google. And if you have just, you know, a quick word here or there that you're not sure of, Google can help you with that too. So let's say there's another word. One of my favorites. One of my favorite words in English is plethora. So you write plethora or any word that you're searching for the definition. You write it in Google, and it'll give you the pronunciation.
Plethora.
And once you click on that, it teaches you how to pronounce it. If you click here, you can actually see how we articulate. Articulation is how we move our mouth, tongue, and lips to pronounce a word. And so we click on that.
Plethora.
We can even slow it down here.
Plethora.
And then when you're ready, you can practice the pronunciation. Plethora. And then it gives us feedback on how we pronounced it. Oh, look, it understood plethora. I'm going to get closer to the mic. I recommend when you do these exercises too, that you use headphones.
Okay.
So, because it has to get, you got to get really close to the mic. Plethora. There we go. I gotta work on my P's, man. I gotta work on my P's.
It's probably because of the echo. You know, too many mics. It's your mic activated, my mic activated. So, but it is also very interesting. I find it very interesting how they highlight the stressed syllable. You know, the first syllable is the stressed one, and because in Spanish we have the acento or the tilde, but in English we have to look for the stressed syllable.
The second syllable, right? Plethora.
Yeah.
I agree with you. So that's a good one too. This is a really good. This is just a very quick way for you to learn pronunciation and to learn vocabulary. So I really recommend that one. So that's one way to do it. And then you just use Google Translate and Google. That's one way to do it. Another very good web page is this one, very similar to what we saw in Google. The only difference is that here there's we can't hear what we say. But I would say that Google Translate and Google itself, it's not as good at catching the sound as we just saw. It's not as good at catching the sound as it could be. They're working on that. And, you know, all Google is always updating their features and stuff. I imagine that's going to get better with time. But speech texture is much better at catching the sound. It really is. So, and it can do the same thing. And the cool thing about speech texture is that you can practice English in any type of pronunciation. So we can practice our English from South Africa. We can practice our English with an English pronunciation. We can practice our English with a New Zealand pronunciation. So it's really cool, really cool. But I'm going to put it here, English, American pronunciation, and it's just basically has a speech-to-text feature for you to practice pronunciation. So this is a good web page for you to practice pronunciation. And also, if you don't like writing everything out, then this could be another way to write, but with your voice, and you can just copy and paste.
All right.
And so this is another tool that we can use to practice our pronunciation.
Yeah.
So I recommend this one.
It's accurate. That's unlike Google. This one's it's more accurate.
Oh yeah, it's much more precise. I agree.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to share one more with you, and this one is this is a fantastic webpage. I would say it's probably the best pronunciation webpage that I've seen. I'm constantly looking for new resources, and I would say that this is probably one of the best free tools that there are out there today. It's called Speech Ace. There's the browser version. You can even download the app. And this speaking test is something that was just added about 3 months ago. This webpage is from Vietnam, which is fantastic. I think what's great about the internet and the age that we live in is that, you know, not only are people teaching English in the United States and in English-speaking countries, but they're teaching them all over the world, and the teachers are phenomenal. And for those Spanish speakers or anybody learning English that wants to have a native English speaker as a teacher, it's not always necessary. You know, I've seen native English speakers that are really horrible teachers, and I've seen teachers that have never stepped out of their own country and are amazing teachers. So trust in your teachers. So here we have a speaking test, which I also recommend. For this one, all you have to do is sign up with your email. It's totally free. And once you're done, it gives you a breakdown of your pronunciation, your fluency, your vocabulary, your grammar, and it even gives you a CEFR score, you know, Common European Framework score. So I really recommend you to take this one. I recommend you speak slowly. I recommend you use microphone. So that's one of the features of this webpage. But it has so many exercises here for Spanish speakers. I'm going to go here to basic sentences, I would say. There's many, every one of these is a module.
Okay.
So, you know, if you're just beginning, I would recommend level 1, beginner. Let's go to level 1. Why not? So I'm going to go here with present progressive sentences. I'm just going to step in here. And I have done this one before, so sorry about that. So I'm going to go to a new, and you'll see that we have sentences, and it's working, it's working on the sound. All right, I'm going to go to another one here. So once you see the sentence, you see that we have a little microphone, not microphone, it's like a little play icon. You click on that.
She is cleaning the headboard.
And once you are done with that, then you try pronouncing it. So I'm going to put on some headphones here so I can use a mic with my headphones. It'll be much more accurate. All right, so now you try pronouncing the sentence. She is cleaning the headboard. And then you click on that. And down here towards the bottom, you will see whether you got it right or not. I'm going to go to another sentence, and I'm going to pronounce one of these words incorrectly. Let's see what happens.
We are using the bolsters.
We are used the posters. So what happened? I mispronounced the word using, and it's red because I have to work on that pronunciation. If you click on that, you can see how it's really pronounced.
Using.
And how I pronounced it. Used. And so it tells us where we have to improve. So I think it's a really cool web page because it gives us feedback, which is something that we don't get with other web pages, or when you're just talking English to somebody, you don't get the feedback. So I really recommend this web page. Like I said, it's really one of the best for pronunciation. It's probably the best one I've seen out there today. There's another web page. The last one I'm going to share with you in terms of, and this one works for, this one really works. It works for anything really, and not only just English. They have worksheets here for people learning French and German and different topics as well, not just languages. But here we have some web pages that are very interactive in the sense that you can drag objects, you can write in the worksheet. I'm going to write here pronunciation and see if we can get working on our pronunciation here. So, for example, I wrote pronunciation here, and we see some exercises to work on our pronunciation, right? So let's say we want to work on one of the mistakes that a lot of English speakers, when they're learning English, what they make is how to pronounce regular verbs in the past. When we write them, we just write D or ED or IED, but it's pronounced 3 different ways. So it's kind of hard, right? So here you'll see that you can listen to it. And then you can click on the answer. So it's as the name says, it's very interactive. And then here they want you to match the definition with the word. So like the webpage says, it's interact. Well, that's the point, right? Interactive.
Yeah.
Let me try another one here. Let's see for the ED pronunciation. I know I had seen some here. There's somewhere you can actually you know what? I'm going to go into, maybe I can go into one of mine. I think I have some myself here that I created. And I think I have some for minimal pairs, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go into my account here. Sorry, guys. I'm not a robot. I promise I'm not. Bicycles. Guess this guy here. Right? Traffic lights.
That's annoying.
It is, but I guess it's necessary.
Yeah.
All right, so let me show you some I have. In fact, a lot of people have trouble with minimal pairs, as you've mentioned before. So these are some that I have created, some worksheets. Let's take a look at some minimal pairs here. And like I said, what's cool about this web page is that it has one of the functions. Well, of course, teachers create these worksheets, but there are some where they give you a sentence, you listen to it, and then you speak it. So I'm going to try one here. This minimal pairs. I'm going to plug in my headphones here. So here we work on minimal pairs. We have and. So once you're ready, I'm going to pronounce here, click here, sit. And then let me try this one. Seat. And so this is a cool website because you can really practice your pronunciation as well.
That's a hard one. Short I and long I. That's yeah.
Yo, for sure.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
So these are just some of the really cool ones that I've seen. Maybe there are some people that really like music. A popular one. This one is super popular. It's called Lyrics Training. We can't
play any songs though, but
don't worry about it.
It's useful.
Lyrics Training is I'll just show you how it works. You can search for a song up here, or you go to a genre, and let's see we have. I'm not going to play the song, but here there are different game modes for different levels, beginner up to expert. I'm going to click on beginner, and we have the writing mode, which is kind of a fill in the gap exercise, and the other one is a choice mode. And you press here, right, you would click on the video, and once the video starts, the lyrics would go down here. I'm going to mute the video, okay? Can I do that? Can I mute the video?
If you don't let it play, if no sound comes out, it's fine, I'd say. Yeah.
Okay, so I clicked on the video. Let's get to the part where you start singing. Right? Let's forward it here. Nowadays, some of the videos just have so much drama before the song begins. Okay. I guess you won't play without the sound, but here the lyrics will come here at the bottom of the screen, and you write down what you hear, or you choose from the multiple choice. Let's do one with multiple choice. I think of one of my songs, one of my favorite songs, "Strangers in the Night," Frank Sinatra. There we go. Old Blue Eyes, as they used to call him. I'm going to click here, beginner. I'm going to put choice mode here on the top right, and I'm going to press play here. Hopefully, it lets me see the. All right, so the audio is starting there. He starts singing, and I'm not playing the audio, but you can hear the audio. And then look, we have like a gap, and then we have the possible choices of what the singer said here at the right, and you click on. I know the song, so I know he says "The Night." Oh no, I think it's "Wandering in the Night." Yeah, "Wandering in the Night." There you go. So this is a cool way to practice, and here you're practicing listening comprehension, you're practicing reading comprehension, and believe it or not, because we're seeing words and context, you're also improving your vocabulary, and also reading comprehension improves your grammar in an implicit way. So this is a really cool one too. You know what, man? We are just so fortunate to have all these tools. I mean, there's so many, man. There's just so many. But I will share with you the ones that I showed you today. I can also share with you a Word document with some other resources, so you can share with your listeners. I'd be happy to do that.
Yes. They're even asking. We have here at the moment. We have Marilyn. She's asking for the links. I will leave the links with you. I think it's lyrics training, right? Yeah, lyrics training.
Yeah, I'm gonna write them on the chat here. Okay.
Yeah, if you can write them there, that'll be great. I'm gonna throw here through. That's the lyrics training. I just threw it there, Marilyn. And okay. Oh yeah, this one's better because it's shorter. We have the speech texter. That's the link. And lyrics training. Do you have the? Oh yeah, it was the speech texter one, speech case.
Speech texter. Yeah, I'm writing it in the Google chat. Google Meet chat.
Yeah.
I'm also gonna share the
speech ace and the live worksheets.
The testing one.
Oh yes. I think they're all there. So this is a really good. Today's chat was basically, or today's talk was basically about resources, and for both English teachers and English students, I'd say these resources are useful for anybody that is in contact with the learning of the language. So unfortunately, Luis Eduardo, time's up for us. We only have like 5 more minutes. But I would like to, just to finish before we go, I would like you to answer about, do you think we learn the language or we pick up the language? Do we pick it up? Do we learn it?
I think we pick it up. I
Okay.
think we pick it up. I think there are people that, imagine if somebody that is illiterate, that cannot read, cannot write, or a baby that cannot speak, cannot write, cannot read, yet he picks up the language. He picks it up. So I think we pick up the language for sure. And I think when we learn the language, we do it. The difference is that when we learn something, we do it purposefully. We do it intentionally. And when we pick something up, sometimes it's not intentional.
Yeah, 100%. So do you think it's better to pick up the language and then learn the language or study the language? What do you think? And that's done. Obviously, that's done through immersion. Because I do get loads of students here in Soluciones Pedagógicas. For example, the first question you will get from someone that wants to learn English is, how long will it take me to learn English? That's a question I can't answer. Because if I get it wrong, then I'll be a liar and you won't ever come back to me. So
that's very hard.
It all depends on you. Cambridge, for example, says that it takes 1,500 hours for you to learn the language and to become fluent. 1,500 hours. And how long will it take you to do the 1,500 hours? And again, it has to be. It doesn't have to be 1,500 hours in 3 months, but it does have to be something day by day. You don't expect yourself to learn English if you're only studying English or if you're only in contact with the language once or twice a week. Like, for example, our courses, normally they run twice a week, but we give them loads of material to learn and like added value, if you want to say it.
Well, I think there's two things. The first factor is, do you want to learn? Because some people say, yeah, I want to learn, but they don't put in the time, they don't put the effort in. Somebody that really wants to learn is somebody that does all of the exercises and goes beyond, and they try to immerse themselves, as you said, in the language. They watch their series in English. They listen to their music in English. They do all the exercises the teacher gives them. Those people are going to learn much faster than the people that are just taking a class. On the other hand, we also have to see is, what is your learning curve? I am very bad with numbers, right? Because my brain just works that way. I'm just very bad at numbers. I'm going to take much longer to learn than somebody that is very talented and gifted with numbers. So that also plays a role. And that not only happens for language, it's also for anything. Like, there are people that are very good at dancing. They can become good dancers in a very short time. But other people, they just lack the coordination and the time and the rhythm, and they're going to take much longer. And it's the same thing for language.
That's me right there. Yeah, very good. I'd say you're damn right. As they say, this is very common in the States now. I've never heard of it before in Ireland, but they say English, you either use it or lose it. That's it. If you don't use it, you lose it. Like, I could tell you've used the language all these years that you've been in Colombia, because you still have your native pronunciation, which I was the same case as you. I went to the States very young. I learned the language there. I had a native pronunciation, and I lost it in Colombia. When I came back to Colombia, I stayed for too long without using the language, and I lost it. I picked up an accent that I still haven't got rid of it. So.
Oh yeah, sure. And I guarantee you, man, in about 2-3 years, you will be talking much more Irish.
Oh, yes.
I can kind of hear the accent now. I can kind of hear it now. It's creeping up on you. It's coming up there.
Yes. 100%. Yes. It's going there. That's what everybody says, that I'm picking up an Irish accent. And that's not volunteer. Like, it's not something I want. It's
exactly.
not.
You picked it up.
I just pick it up. Yes, I just pick it up, and you just get the lingua, as they say. So yeah, once again, Luis, thank you very much for this section. I think you've given us loads of resources and loads of added value. So I'm pretty sure our listeners are very happy about it. We have Eusi Jaramillo in the listeners, and she's one of those students that will go beyond, as you were saying. She's in our WhatsApp group, and she's been with us for a couple of months now, and you'll see her very active, throwing questions and putting topics And
I'm
and
gonna
you
go
can.
in that WhatsApp group. I gotta go in that WhatsApp group and start participating.
Oh yes, for sure. Yeah, I'll give you the link there. The link
Sure.
later. But lots of
Sure.
our students, your students from your groups, they're all in the WhatsApp
Cool.
group and they interact. And yes, it is a good place, and it's just a space I created for people to immerse into the language. So we don't speak Spanish, we don't text in Spanish. There is no Spanish going in the group, and I'm pretty sure it has worked for many of the participants. As you were saying, some people go to the States, they don't speak English with anybody, they don't learn English, even being in the States. I know many cases, but some people
Yeah, me
don't
too.
even have to go to the States and they pick up the language because that's just their will. So as
Yeah.
I was saying,
Yeah.
time's up. So I don't know, Luis Eduardo, just the last words you want to give to our listeners, just a piece of advice.
Piece of advice is be patient with yourselves, but never stop. If you stop trying, then you guarantee failure. But if you keep going, sooner or later you guarantee success. So don't stop, and be patient. And I wish everybody that's listening just the very best in their professional and personal lives.
All right, very good. I will only add to that the only thing you can't fake is to speak a language. That's
right.
the only
That's
thing.
right.
That's the only thing you can't fake. So go for it,
Can't.
and I'm pretty sure you'll make it. All right, thanks a million again, lads.